relationship. I never thought she would be the type of woman to have an affair. Well, I certainly found out that infidelity was something she was really good at. I met my wife at a community volleyball league. It was one of those recreational leagues where people just came to have fun. It seemed like a good way to stay active and meet people. When I met her, she was working as a restaurant manager, and I was a commercial pipe fitter. While we were dating, everything seemed normal. She was always upfront about her schedule and what she was doing. We never had trust issues or anything like that. We dated for about 3 years before getting married. She was consistent, reliable, and was always where she said she would be. I thought I found someone I could trust completely. We have been married for 10 years now. I bought us a house about 4 years ago. She was doing well at work, and the subject of kids came up a few times, but it never happened for us. Well, about 9 months ago, she told me she wanted to start taking art classes. She said she had always been interested in painting and wanted to try it as a hobby. The classes were on Monday and Wednesday evenings from 6:30 to 8:30. I thought it was great that she wanted to try something new. She seemed really excited about it, bought all kinds of art supplies, paints, brushes, the whole setup. For the first few weeks, she would come home and show me what she had worked on. Simple stuff at first, like still life drawings and basic color mixing. I was supportive, told her she was getting better, and encouraged her to keep at it. But then she stopped showing me her work, said she was working on a big project and wanted to surprise me when it was finished. That seemed reasonable, so I didn't give it much thought. Then the Monday and Wednesday classes became Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday afternoon sessions. That's probably where those subtle red flags showed up and he missed them. She said the instructor was offering weekend workshops for people who wanted to improve faster. Again, that sounded believable, so I supported her hobby. But around the same time, she started getting phone calls from someone she called her art instructor, always about scheduling changes or what supplies to bring to the next class. These calls happened at weird times though, like Sunday morning or late at night. When I asked about it, she said the instructor was just really dedicated and wanted to make sure everyone was prepared. The call started lasting longer as well, sometimes 30 or 40 minutes. She would take them in another room, saying it was because the instructor was going over techniques and she needed to concentrate. That's BS. If she is just talking to her instructor, she should be able to take calls in front of her husband. That struck me as odd, but I did not want to be the husband who gets jealous of art classes. But I started wondering why an art instructor would need to talk to students for that long about basic painting. I started paying more attention to the little details after that. It was like she never had any paint under her fingernails after these long art sessions, or how her art supplies never seemed to get used up, even though she was supposedly painting for hours every week. The big red flag came about a month ago. I decided to surprise her by stopping by the art studio to see if she wanted to grab dinner after class. I had looked up the address she gave me for the class location. When I got there, it was an empty office building with a for lease sign in the window. Damn. No art studio, no classes, nothing. I sat in my car for about an hour, thinking maybe I had the wrong address. But when she came home that night, she talked about what a great class they had and how much she was learning. She was lying about the entire thing. There were no art classes. There was no art instructor calling her at weird hours. She was somewhere else on those Monday and Wednesday nights, and now Saturday afternoons too. I realized my wife had been lying to me for months about where she was spending her time, creating this elaborate story about art classes so she could go do whatever she was really doing. 10 years of marriage, and she could look me in the eye and lie about something for months. Make up stories about painting, art supplies, and instructor, all so she could sneak around behind my back. I felt like an idiot for believing her, but when someone you trust, like your wife, tells you they are taking art classes, why wouldn't you believe them? Yeah, good point. I mean, at this point, you trust them. You have no reason not to trust them. You do not expect them to create an entire fake hobby to cover up an affair, because that is what this was. My wife was having an affair and using art classes as her cover story. She thought she was so clever, coming up with this creative excuse that would let her disappear twice a week and sometimes 3 times a week. But she made one mistake. She underestimated how much attention I paid to details. I always say that. If you can, just pay attention. Just pay attention. And now that I knew she was lying, I was going to find out exactly what she was really doing during those art classes. Once I knew she was lying about the art classes, I had to figure out what she was really doing. The problem was, she still thought I believed her story. She had no idea I had been to that empty building. So she kept acting like everything was normal, talking about her painting progress and how much she loved her instructor. It was actually disgusting how easily the lies came out of her mouth. But I decided to use that to my advantage. If she thought I was still buying her story, she would get comfortable and maybe make mistakes. The first thing I did was start paying attention to her schedule. She leaves for art class every Monday and Wednesday at 6:15. Always said she would be home by 9:30. But I started timing her actual return, and it was never consistent. Sometimes she got home at 9:45, sometimes it was 10:15, once it was almost 11. When I asked about it, she always had some excuse about the instructor running over or the class going out for a drink afterwards. I also started checking the mileage on her car. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I had to know where she was going. The art studio she claimed to attend was about 12 miles from our house. The round trip should have been maybe 24 or 25 miles, accounting for a stop or two. But after her Monday class, the odometer showed she had driven almost 60 miles. When I mentioned it, she said they had gone to an art supply store after class, which is a bit of a drive. I started taking pictures of the odometer before and after her art classes. Monday night, she drove 58 miles. Wednesday night, it was 62 miles. Saturday afternoon, 71 miles. She was definitely not going anywhere near where the art classes were supposed to be. I needed to figure out where she was really going. The next Monday, I decided to follow her. I know that sounds crazy, but I had to know what was going on. I left work a little early and parked about a block away from our house. At 6:15, she came out and got in her car. Instead of turning left toward the so-called art studio, she turned right and got on the highway. I followed her for about 20 minutes until she took this exit, which seemed like she was heading to a newer part of town. It was in a part of town I rarely went to, kind of a newer development with bigger houses. She drove through a subdivision and pulled into the driveway of a house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Nice place, probably worth twice what our house was. A man came out of the front door before she even got out of her car. To my surprise, this guy was in decent shape. I wasn't too bad either, but he looked like he was a bodybuilder. He walked over to her car and opened the car door for her. She got out and they hugged, the kind of hug you give someone you are sleeping with. Then they went inside together. I sat at the end of the street for about 10 minutes, trying to process what I had just seen. My wife was having an affair with some guy who lived in a house that probably cost more than I made in 2 years. She was cheating on me with someone who was clearly better off financially than we were. I took a picture of the house number and the street sign. Then I drove back home and waited for her to get back. She walked in at 10:20, talking about what a great class it was and how she was really improving. She even had a few drops of paint on her hands that she must have put there to make it look authentic. The level of planning that went into her lies was incredible. She had thought of everything, except for the fact that her husband was not as stupid as she thought. The next few days, I could not stop thinking about what I had seen. My wife was having an affair with some rich guy, and she had been lying to me for 9 months, coming home every Monday and Wednesday night and acting like she had been painting, making up stories about art instructors and weekend workshops, all so she could have sex with someone else. I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner, but I also felt angry. Well, sometimes when you're in love, sometimes that makes you blind. She had made me feel like something was wrong with me when our sex life disappeared, made me think it was work stress or just a rough patch in our marriage. But the whole time, she was getting her needs met by someone else, someone who apparently had a lot more money than I did. I started wondering how long this had been going on. She said the art classes started 9 months ago, but maybe that was when she got more organized about her cheating. Possibly she could have been cheating longer and with someone else, not just the so called art instructor. Maybe she had been seeing this guy longer and just needed a better cover story. The thought made me sick. How many times has she come home from being with him and kissed me goodnight? Yuck. How many times has she lied to my face about where she had been? How many times had I believed her stories while she was laughing at how gullible I was? I knew I needed to find out more about this guy, who he was, how they met, whether he knew she was married, but I also knew I had to be careful. She could not know that I knew, not yet, because once she realized I was onto her, she would either get better at hiding it or just leave. And I was not ready for either of those things to happen. I wanted to know everything before I decided what to do next. The first thing I did was use the address to figure out who this guy was. I looked up the property records online, and it was registered to someone with the last name Richardson. From there, I was able to find his full name and some basic information. I found his social media profiles, and he looked exactly like the type of guy my wife would be attracted to. Pictures of him at the gym, vacation photos, expensive car, the whole package. Everything I was not. The more I learned about him, the angrier I got. This was not some random thing where she met someone and it just happened. She had specifically chosen someone who was everything her husband was not. Richer, better looking, more successful. It was like she had gone shopping for an upgrade. I started following her more regularly after that. Not every time, but maybe once a week, just to see if the pattern was consistent. It always was. Monday and Wednesday nights, straight to his house. Saturday afternoons, same thing. Sometimes she would stop at a grocery store on the way home and pick up something for dinner. It was like she was playing house with him and then coming home to play house with me. The whole thing made me sick, but I kept acting normal at home. Asked about her art classes. I complimented her on how relaxed she seemed after her sessions. She would light up when I brought it up, talking about how much she loved painting and how talented her instructor was. Yeah, I bet he was talented, all right. The lies just poured out of her like they were the most natural thing in the world. I realized she was not just cheating on me, she was enjoying it. She liked having this secret life where she could be with someone else. She liked lying to me and thinking I was too stupid to figure it out. That was when I decided I was done. I'm not done investigating, but I'm done with the marriage. There was no coming back from this. No couples therapy or working through our problems. Yeah, that's crazy. In some cases, when a spouse cheats, the betrayed spouse is the one that offers, hey, let's try counseling. Can we work it out? But why? You didn't cheat. You don't need counseling because she made the choice. He or she made that choice to cheat. Doesn't make sense to me. She had made her choice when she decided to start cheating. Now I was going to make mine. I started researching divorce lawyers and how to protect myself. We did not have kids, which made things simpler, but we did have the house and some joint accounts that I needed to think about. I also started thinking about how I wanted this to end. I could confront her with what I knew and have it out right then, but that seemed too easy for her. She had been lying to me for 9 months, making me feel like there was something wrong with our marriage when the problem was her affair. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be blindsided, the way I felt when I realized what she was doing. So I started making my own plans. I opened up a new bank account at a different bank and began transferring funds. I also started looking for an apartment, somewhere I could go when I was ready to leave, because that was my plan. I was not going to confront her and give her a chance to try to fix things. I was going to disappear. Let her come home from one of her art classes to find an empty house and a note explaining that I knew everything. That seemed like the perfect ending to a perfect crime. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life, acting normal while I was planning my escape, kissing her goodbye in the morning, knowing she was going to spend the day managing a restaurant and then come home and lie to me about art classes, watching her get ready for her Monday and Wednesday sessions, knowing she was putting on whatever she thought would look good for him. That's got to be tough. She had no idea that her husband was planning to disappear. I found an apartment about 15 minutes away from our house. Nothing fancy, but it was furnished and available immediately. I could move in whenever I was ready. I also met with a divorce lawyer and explained the situation. He asked me if I had proof that my wife was cheating. I told him I didn't, and he told me it would be in my best interest to get some type of proof. I couldn't hire a private investigator, too expensive for my budget, so I decided to take a few days off work and follow her. I said this in a video a long time ago. Never let your cheating spouse interfere with the money you make. So if you have time on the books, then maybe use that. Investigate further if you have to, if you can't afford a private investigator. It only took me a few days to get the photos and videos I needed. There was no shame in their game. Making out in random places, believe me, I wanted to end both of them, but I couldn't. Plus, I had the mileage records, everything. He told me to keep gathering evidence and document everything. I was getting close to being ready. I had the apartment, the lawyer, the evidence, and the bank account. All I needed was to pick the right day to make my move. I wanted it to be a day when she had plans to go to her art class, so she would come home expecting to find me waiting for her, ready to hear about her wonderful painting sessions. Instead, she would find an empty house and a letter explaining that I knew about her affair, that her husband was not as stupid as she thought, and that she could have her perfect life with her rich boyfriend because I was done being her backup plan. She thought she was so clever with her story about her art class, but she was about to find a surprise waiting for her. The day I picked was a Wednesday in early October. She had art class scheduled, which meant she would be at Richardson's house from around 7ish until at least 10. That gave me almost 4 hours to get everything done. I had been planning this for weeks, so I knew exactly what I needed to take. Most of my clothes, some personal items, important documents, and anything else that mattered to me. I was not trying to clean out the house or be vindictive about it. I just wanted to disappear quietly and let her figure out the rest. That morning, she acted the same as always. She kissed me goodbye before leaving for work and told me she loved me. I wouldn't be kissing her, but if he stopped kissing her, she probably would have thought something was up. Reminded me that she had an art class that evening and would probably be home around 10 or so. The same lies she had been telling me for 9 months, but this time I knew it would be the last time. I took a half day at work and went home around noon to get started. The hardest part was deciding what to take and what to leave behind. 10 years of marriage, and I was trying to fit my life into a few boxes. I took my tools, since I would need them for work, my clothes, some books, and the few things that had belonged to my father before he passed away. Everything else could stay. Some furniture and some kitchen stuff. I didn't totally clean out the house, but I did take things that she would notice right away when she walked in. I wrote the letter while I was packing, kept it short and to the point. No dramatic speeches or emotional breakdowns, just the facts. I knew about Richardson. I knew about the fake art classes. I had photos and videos of her affair. I have already filed for divorce. We would deal with the house at the divorce hearing, or she could move in with her boyfriend and I would keep the house. I did not care which. By 4 o'clock, I had everything loaded into my truck. I walked through the house one more time to make sure I had not forgotten anything important. It was strange how empty it felt, even though some of the furniture was still there. I left the letter on the kitchen counter where she would see it soon as she walked in. Then I locked the door and drove away. I did not look back. I went to my new apartment and spent the rest of the evening unpacking. It was not much, but it was mine. No lies, no fake art classes, no wondering where my wife really was, just peace and quiet. Around 11 p.m., my phone started ringing. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. She called 8 more times over the next hour. I deleted all the voicemails without listening to them. There was nothing she could say that would change anything. She had made her choice 9 months ago. Now she was living with the consequences. The next morning, she started texting me, asking where I was, what was going on, begging me to come home so we could talk. I ignored all of it. My lawyer had told me not to communicate with her directly. Anything she wanted to say could go through him. About a week later, I heard from a mutual friend that she was telling people I abandoned her. I left without any explanation or warning, making herself out to be the victim in all of this. That was fine with me. Let her tell whatever story she wanted. The people who mattered would find out the truth soon enough, especially when the divorce papers were served and the evidence of her affair became part of the public record. I also heard through the grapevine that she had moved in with Richardson pretty quickly after I left. So much for being heartbroken about her marriage ending. Turns out she had been planning her exit strategy just like I had. The only difference was I actually followed through with mine. She thought she could have it both ways, keep her stable marriage with me while having an affair with him. But when forced to choose, she picked the guy with the bigger house and the better bank account, which told me everything I needed to know about what our marriage had really meant to her. The divorce was finalized about a year later. She did not contest it once she saw the evidence I had. Her lawyer probably told her she would be wasting her time and money trying to find it. Adultery is adultery, no matter how you try to dress it up. I got to keep my pension and most of our savings. We sold the house and I received most of the equity. Last I heard, she was still with Richardson. I hope they are very happy together. I hope she never has to worry about him lying to her the way she had lied to me. But something tells me that people who are willing to cheat on their spouses are not exactly the most trustworthy partners. She will probably find that out the hard way. As for me, I am doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I have my own place, my own life, and I do not have to wonder where my now ex-wife really is when she says she is taking art classes, because I do not have a wife anymore. And that is exactly how I want it. She thought she was so clever with her fake hobby and her secret affair. She thought she could fool me forever, but she underestimated the man she married. Her husband was gone, and her perfect double life had finally caught up with her. Turns out nobody is as clever as they think they are, especially cheaters who think their spouse is too stupid to figure it out. She learned that lesson the hard way, and I learned that sometimes the best revenge is just walking away and letting someone else deal with their mess. I don't have anything negative to say about OP. What was good though on his part was, for one, he didn't take her back, and he kept his composure. He didn't let his emotions get ahead of him and make him make a mistake. He just walked, planned his exit strategy, and he walked. That's what you're supposed to do. Control your emotions and get out unscathed. Until next time.